and to engage with us directly. To our parents and attendees, your voices are the heart of this advocacy. Thank you for showing up, for staying engaged, and for partnering with us as we work to ensure an equitable educational landscape for all. Thank you all again, and I will now turn this over to our Education Committee Chair, Dr. Iris Herman.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming. If you're like me, you had to battle traffic, and you had to put forth some effort to get here, so we really do appreciate you coming. So we're going to move right on into the program because we know that time is limited. And I'd like to introduce or give you just a little information about the two moderators. Both of them serve on the Education Committee. So first we have Chris McMillan. And Chris would like to share that he's the father of two daughters, one in college and one in high school. He's a very proud father. He's worked in the educational arena for over 20 years. And he's a member, as you can see from his shirt, of Omega Psi Phi fraternity. He's a member of Jack and Jill of America. And he's a member of the NAACP. And that's Chris McMillan. And then we have Dr. Elena Walker. She's originally from Dallas, Texas. She now resides here in Northern Virginia. She is an experienced educator with a PhD in Administration of Higher Education from Auburn University. She has a master's and a bachelor's in business and retail merchandising from the University of North Texas. As a current member of the NAACP, Dr. Walker indicated that she is committed to supporting the community and serving as a positive change agent. Let's hear her. So our president is coming back up. She's going to introduce Dr. Michelle Reid, and we're going to get started. Thank you.
Since assuming leadership of Fairfax County Public Schools on July 1st, 2022, Dr. Michelle C. Reid has championed educational excellence and equity by launching the division's 2023 through 2030 strategic plan, creating middle school sports programs, and fostering community engagement through the Family Vision Group. Leveraging her background as a STEM educator, she balances literacy with numeracy, having already overseen the implementation of new state math standards and the district's first new language arts curriculum in decades. Dr. Reid's distinguished career includes serving as a teacher, principal, and superintendent in Washington State, where she was named the 2021 AASA National Superintendent of the Year. Her leadership is anchored by a doctorate and master's from the University of Washington, a bachelor's from the University of Puget Sound, thank you, and an advanced leadership certificate from Harvard University. I will now pass the reins to our two moderators.
Well, I'll start with one, Dr. Reid, thank you for joining us for this NAACP forum and everyone who's present. I'll give you kind of a breakdown of what it's going to look like. Dr. Walker and myself, and at that point, once we get done with our questions, we'll open it up to the floor to where they can come up to the microphone and ask questions as well, to where you can answer, or your staff can answer, and we'll just move through the day like that. All right? So I'll take the first question. Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Reid,
All right, Dr. Reid, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. No, I was going with the flow. I do want to say thank you to the NAACP for hosting this tonight. I think it's really important. I was recently at the scholarship event when we honored students, and it just, it's so inspiring the work that the NAACP is doing. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight, so thank you. I want to take a moment just to reflect that we did just graduate 14,758 students. Come on now. And I do want to point out that is larger than many small towns. We have just a rich and deep tradition of excellence, I think, here in our county, and deep and committed partnerships with the NAACP in particular. As we move into the forum this evening, I want to make sure that I have a chance to have our leadership team quickly introduce themselves. A number of them are here. So, Marty, why don't I just have you do that, and we'll just kind of pass the mic.
Good evening, everyone. Marty Smith, Chief of Staff.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Megan Roman. I'm Chief of Schools.
Good evening, everyone. My name is William Solomon, Chief Human Resources Officer.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Jamil Choice. I'm the Regional Assistant Superintendent for Region 1.
I'm Amelia Mitchell, Dr. Amelia Mitchell. I'm the Regional Assistant Superintendent for Region 2.
Good evening, I'm April Cage. I'm one of the executive principals for Region 6.
Hi, Kim Greer, one of the Executive Principals for Region 4.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tara Hewen. I serve as the Executive Director for Equity and Student Relations with Chief Equity Office.
Good evening, I'm Lisa Riddell. I'm the Interim Assistant Superintendent for Region 4. Good evening, everyone. I'm Becky Bainig. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Region 5.
Good evening, Sloan Presidio, Chief Academic Officer. Get everybody or Sorry, Ray.
Ray Lynette, Assistant Superintendent for Region 3. Also really glad to be here today and here with my colleague.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Dr. Ingrid Vine, I'm the Executive Principal, Region 3.
And I'm Lisa Youngblood Hall, Chief Experience and Engagement Officer. Hiding behind the pillar of the baby.
Hi. Sorry, I wasn't expecting. Ricardi Andrews, I've got all of my things. I'm Ricardi Anderson. I am the school board member that represents the Mason District.
All right, so I think let's go ahead and get started. And Dr. Walker, Mr. McMillan, looking forward to the conversation. I know staff have prepared answers for some of these since you gave us the 7 questions ahead. And I want to give them an opportunity to answer, and I can answer follow-ups to that too.
100%.
All right.
Thank you very much. Start with the first question. Can you update us on the status of how the school district is addressing discrimination concerns related to students with disabilities, including dyslexia and autism?
That's a great question, and Dr. Presidio, our Chief Academic Officer, is going to respond to that. So Dr. Presidio?
Yeah, thank you. Good evening again, everybody. It's great to see everybody here. We appreciate so many community partners coming out for this conversation, especially the folks that are joining virtually, and it's nice to see so many friendly faces in the audience and key strategic partners from groups like the MSAOC, so we really appreciate the support. So I think when we think about discrimination issues as it pertains to students with disabilities, kind of the first thing that I think about in terms of our work is to ensure that all of our students have equitable access and opportunities to everything that we offer. Any student in the school division should be available to every student in the school division. So when we think about students with disabilities, oftentimes where I think about that work first is in relation to curriculum and instruction. We don't want to create any curricular discrimination or instructional discrimination, for example. So we want to make sure that all of our students with disabilities are fully included in all aspects of the school environment. And we have a major inclusion initiative that you might be aware of as part of our strategic plan. It's essentially the second goal in our strategic plan is to make sure that all of our classrooms are inclusive for all students. So for students with disabilities, that means that we want students with disabilities to be educated in a general education classroom along with their peers that don't have any learning disabilities as often as possible and as often as the families collaborate with us to make sure that that's the appropriate placement for their student. So we're working very hard on an inclusion initiative where we're devoting 3 years of training and support to every one of our 200 schools to make significant changes to how we provide educational services to start out with, that looks like making sure that students can access the general education classroom. But to do that, we have to kind of work backwards from the entire identification process for special education. So we are working with all of our schools to redesign the identification process for how students become eligible for disability services, making sure that we're using objective information, objective data, not any subjective bias before we identify students for services. We're working to redesign the individual education plans that every student has. Again, making sure that we have evidence-based goals for our students based on measurable outcomes that are very clearly articulated in terms of the strategies and actions and the outcome measures that we expect our students to achieve. And then we're working to enhance our service delivery model. So instead of serving students with disabilities, perhaps in a self-contained setting, we want to serve them in the general education classroom, along with their peers who don't have disabilities, again, to the greatest extent possible, and ensure their success there. So we're pushing in supports and services to make sure that they can be included as frequently as possible. So that's a high-level view of our inclusion initiative. The next thing that we think about when we're kind of thinking about equity and access is making sure that we're identifying students who might have additional learning needs as early as possible. We don't want students falling behind and then needing additional supports and services later. We want to serve them as soon as we can identify any learning gaps. So we've got a very comprehensive assessment program or testing program we call universal screening, where we multiple times a year, starting in preschool all the way through high school, give students assessments in reading and math to make sure that we're identifying students who might demonstrate markers of dyslexia, for example, back to the question stump. And then after we've identified students that might need additional services, we have really enhanced the intervention or support plans that students receive. So if a student is being low grade level in reading, they have individualized reading plans. And that's true for elementary all the way through high school. So you can kind of think of those as like mini IEPs. The families receive copies of those. They receive copies of the progress that students are making and additional information about how they can support their students. So that's really, really critical, is to make sure that our students are identified early and provided with individualized, effective evidence-based supports. So that's kind of the first category or bucket of making sure that all students have what they need, that equitable access to the program. The second bucket that I think about on this issue is really around school culture and climate. We want all of our schools to be inclusive, but also have cultures of inclusion, belonging, and support for each other. It's very, very important. Cultural issues in the school, obviously, we want all of our students to feel supported and valued for who they are, their unique strengths and talents, and their differences in terms of their backgrounds that they bring to our school communities. So in terms of that work, that's a lot of what we're doing with what we refer to as our social emotional learning program, where we're really working with students to demonstrate the power of inclusive learning communities and to hear from our students. So we survey our students on an annual basis and collect information about their experiences. Do they feel a sense of belonging? Do they feel accepted in the classroom? How are the peer relationships in their school? How do adults, what's their relationship like with their teachers and their administrators in the school? And that gives us really actionable information where we need to make improvements to enhance the culture and climate in our school. And then we have a lot of positive culture and climate initiatives as well, things like the Positivity Project that you might have heard of, where students receive instruction on things that they can do to create a more positive culture and climate in their schools. So culture and climate is incredibly important. That's kind of the second bucket of the work that we're doing. And then kind of the third bucket is, well, what do we do when we're aware of issues? Yes? Am I already too long-winded?
Yes.
I can stop.
We know that you have a lot of information.
Okay.
So when you all are directing the PowerPoints, please try to give us your bullet points.
I'm actually not speaking to this slide, I'm just speaking extemporaneously.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna
There's a redundancy there, so I apologize. Okay. I can just wrap up and go to the second question. I
Yes,
apologize.
please.
All right.
But we're also gonna allow 2.5
Invite the viewer to join your live video as a guest. You don't understand.
All right, sounds good, thank you.
That's why don't, yeah.
Thank you very much.
They can be on
Thank you
live.
very much, and I was going along with the guy we have back here. Thank you for creating, whoever created. Okay, next question. Can we have an update on the status of how Fairfax County Public Schools is addressing discrimination matters concerning minority students within each school. I'll read it. Oh. Read it again.
Within each school.
I'll read it again just to
Okay.
make sure. Can we have an update on the status of how Fairfax County Public Schools is addressing discrimination matters concerning minority students?
Thank you. I think the Tara was prepared to offer the 2.5 to 3 minutes. And I think it's also very likely, there'll be follow-up questions on this, I think, but if you can share where we're at right now, Tara, that'd be great. Thank you.
I will be brief. I'm grateful to be in community with each of you, and I really echo what you named earlier, that this is shared responsibility. And I also want to name that while we have made important progress, that this continues to remain essential, that we continue to improve our progress. So a couple updates. We have increased transparency and accessibility by establishing a public discrimination and harassment reporting tool, and that can be found on our website. And this provides students and families with a clear pathway to report their concerns. We have also extended opportunities for student voice to better understand their lived experiences and identify areas requiring ongoing attention for systemic improvement. In our student rights and responsibilities, we have also expanded the definition of hate speech, slur, and discrimination. And also, we have required interventions for students if they display those behaviors at school. And next year, those interventions will be grade aligned, and they will be monitored more intentionally with completion and
Tara, could you add just a minute? One of the things we added, I think, because we were just speaking about this, was the module we're requiring, because we didn't previously have, if you will, a reteaching piece related to these types of incidents. So if you want to just make a comment about that, because I think that's work we're going to ask for some feedback from, also from the NAACP.
Absolutely, absolutely. So 2 pieces with that, Dr. Reid, and thank you so much for that reminder. So what we have done is this collaboration between the Chief Equity Office and the Chief Academic Office, because we know the work of equity and culturally responsiveness does not rest on the shoulders of one person or one office. It is the collective responsibility of the entire system. So what we have done is provide professional learning for recognizing and addressing discrimination and oppression. Also, we provided professional learning around culturally responsive learning environments. And then the module that you're referring to, once students make a slur or they show us that there is a need for some learning and intervention, then they participate in a module. And so what we're going to have you do, partner with you, is to take a look at that module to help us improve that.
Thank you, Tara. I do have a quick, when did the website, access to the website?
That has been about 1.5 years.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Probably this summer.
All right, so question 3. Said you had?
All right, I'm ready for you to read. Could you read it for me though, please?
Sure, 100%. All right, here we go. What steps are taken by the school district to ensure support and equal treatment for minority students in the case of disciplinary matters? And this is a data question. And how often does the school district review discipline data?
So I'm going to start with that because I am really proud of our team. Dr. King, Deanna Shin, Tara Hewlin. I mean, the work they've done on this topic is pretty incredible. I attended an event this week. I mean, you're smiling. I mean, this has been a lot of work, and there were some schools that were not thrilled to be nominated to get some extra support in this area, and they've worked really hard this year with the school. So I just want to say this is work that's been intentional and focused, and I'm really proud of the results. So go ahead, Tara.
Thank you, Dr. Reid. So Dr. Reid is referring to our school discipline consortium, This was launched via the Chief Equity Office to reduce discipline disproportionality. It's a mouthful, so we call it SDC. We like to use acronyms around here. So the SDC provides targeted coaching, professional development, and action planning to help support more equitable learning environments and reduce exclusionary practices that disproportionately impact students from historically marginalized and racial and ethnic and linguistic communities. And that's more of a targeted 3 approach. Next year in the SRNR, we will have universal grade matrices, and that provides standardized disciplinary responses for infractions across the division. They're grade aligned, and they focus on intervention-based learning, because we know that the research tells us that providing consequences and sanctions only does not improve behavior. What we want to do is be sure that we're responding to students' behavior and providing interventions to repeat behaviors. And so we're going to be monitoring the matrices to ensure adherence and requirements and partnerships with the region to support schools that may need guidance. And then in addition, we also, one more. Our RJ practices, and really making sure that as we are decreasing our exclusionary practices, that we're creating restorative justice circles.
Thank you. Thank you, Tara. Next question. What's the status of teacher recruitment of Black, African American, and minority teachers?
All right, Mr. Solomon, reporting from HR, Human Resources.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for this question. It's an important question because the research is very clear, and we all know that students benefit from adults or access to adults who look like them, who've had similar experiences as them, all of those different things. And the first thing I want to share is that this past school year for 25-26, Fairfax County Public Schools started the school year 99.7% staffed, basically fully staffed. And that is huge. That doesn't happen in medium and large size school divisions. Most of the time they open with hundreds of vacancies, but not in Fairfax County Public Schools. We wanted to make sure that our students had access to world-class, high-quality, high-impact educators. And a big part of that is making sure that our team and our school division is accessible, right? That people are able to make it through the hiring process fast, that they know that they have an opportunity with FCPS, that we're visible, that we're present at not only job fairs that we host internally, but also at our historically Black colleges and universities, our minority-serving institutions, all of those different things to make sure that students know that Fairfax is a place where they can be successful as they come into the teaching profession. We've attended nearly 100 recruitment events within the last year and a half. And as it relates to hiring, you'll see more on slide 7, but the population of hiring, or the rate of hiring for Black teachers has increased by 7.5 percentage points from pre-COVID to post-COVID, and the proportion of Hispanic teacher hiring has increased by about 6.5 percentage points from pre-COVID to post-COVID. Now, what I want to point out on this slide is that what you're seeing up here is student and teacher representation. That top half is pre-COVID, 2018-2019, and that bottom half is today. On the left-hand side, that's the population of all of our teachers. On the middle, that's the population of all of our hires by race and ethnicity. And on the right side, that's our student body. Again, from pre-COVID all the way to post-COVID. And you can see we're making great progress as it relates to the hiring of a more diverse workforce. We, again, have increased the population of our Black teacher hires by 7.5%, our Hispanic hires by 6.5%, but we also know there's opportunity. And the biggest opportunity that you'll see on here is for our Hispanic teacher hires and for our Asian teacher hires. So we're working very closely to make sure that those populations better reflect and better mirror our student population. In addition to attending hiring events, one of the things that I always like to share is that recruitment is a multi-tiered, multi-pronged strategy. We want to make sure that this profession is accessible, that people have multiple pathways, that they can get their teaching license, that there are no barriers, that they, that they have every opportunity to join FCPS.
Before you walk off, I have one straightforward question. Howard University, Bowie, Morgan, Cox, Virginia State, Norfolk, Hampton. How are you? Am I missing any HBCUs? VUU. These are all within a 2 to 3 hour drive. How often do you all recruit at HBCUs? Because from what I'm seeing is you all don't really make too much of an effort to go to HBCUs if you've only increased about 7% for Black teachers. And my next question is, why not a higher push for Black teachers in a diverse community, in a diverse county such as Fairfax?
No, I appreciate the question. The first thing I want to share is that we recruit heavily from our historically Black colleges and universities, minority-serving institutions, everywhere that we possibly can. We have an entire recruitment team in Fairfax County Public Schools of 4 recruiters that make it a practice and make it a point as part of their roles to visit those colleges and universities, to be present at the job fairs that they're having in their colleges of education, and to make sure that students at those schools who are looking for jobs for the upcoming school year, so in this case for 26-27, know that FCPS is a place where they can be incredibly successful. So in this past year, we were at Delaware State University, Atlanta University, NAACP, Grambling, Southern University, Maryland HBCU, Spare, the University of Maryland, on and on and on. Fairfax County Public Schools is represented at our historically Black colleges and universities and our minority-serving institutions. And we look forward to continuing the conversation. If there's representation that we're missing or that you don't see, please let us know so that we can make sure that we take a closer look. And then as it relates to the recruitment, a big part of that is making sure that pathways into the profession are accessible, that everybody knows and understands that Fairfax is a place where they can be successful, that they can get their teaching license, that they can get their foot in the door, that this is a place where there are incredible supports. So in addition to the recruitment aspects, the support aspects are ones that we push immensely. In addition to making sure that all of our teachers get to attend Great Beginnings, are paired with a mentor teacher, understand that Fairfax has their back and is going to make sure that they have every opportunity to succeed, that's the value of working at FCPS. And I see our union representatives.
In 1 minute, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead, no, 1 minute. No.
I see our union representatives in the audience in collaboration with Fairfax Education Unions. FCPS for the 26-27 school year is going to, our compensation is going to outpace our neighboring school divisions incredibly for our new teachers. It's a draw not only for the recruitment. The thing that I always share is in addition to our compensation package, it doesn't stop there. Our benefits package is bar none, something you will not find in any other school division in this region. Our rates are incredible, what we offer to employees is incredible, and we make it such that when people join FCPS, they are wrapped in a level of support that you will not see in other school divisions in this region.
Thank you very much.
What does that say? You're not answering.
Okay, so thank you. I was just going to mention that we have a few more questions that we're going to ask here. And then if you have a question that you would like to ask, go ahead and start thinking about that. And then don't be shy. You can come up here to the mic in a moment and ask your questions. Thank you. So we'll go ahead and go on.
All right, next question. Since the last NAACP forum, what progress has been made? And feel free to provide any examples demonstrating progress.
Thank you, Mr. McMillan, and we have made progress. So Mr. Smith and Ms. Roman are going to share in their 2.5 to 3 minutes.
I might ask for a 2 first, so that we have the data and the strategy. So good evening, everyone. It is truly an honor to be here tonight. We're excited to talk about some of the advancements that we've made in this past year. And while we're not where we want to be, we know that because everyone is in this room, we're going to get where we need to be. And we have a strong strategic plan that's going to help us get there. This next slide shows you some of the achievements that we've made in the 24-25 school year. We don't have the full data set for this year, but I can share that some of our preliminary results show that our reading and math results as an entire school division are at 80%. And I think that that deserves a round of applause. It's a big deal. We're getting to some of those pre-COVID achievement scores that we were seeing. You'll note that we've seen some declines in rigorous course taking as a school division and on-time graduation. And I think that Ms. Rowan will talk a little bit about some of the strategies that we put in place. The next slide will show you the past year's progress by student race and ethnicity. And so we do see, still see some differences in performance for student groups across our metrics, but we do see some of our gaps narrowing, particularly for students, black students meeting kindergarten spring benchmarks. We're up 3 percentage points. And with our math SOL pass rates, the growth that we've seen there, our black students are outpacing the division average. We've also seen that our Hispanic students had a 3 percentage point increase in their SOL pass rates. So we're excited about that, and we know that we still have work to do. And then the next slide shows some of our past year's progress by student group. And again, we look at these metrics for different service groups. I'll let you take a look at some of the charts here. You can see by group where we've seen increases, where we've seen decreases. I like these charts because it's a different way of looking at data. It's a bit easier to see where we're making some of those gains. And again, we are still very focused on ensuring that all of these groups get to 100% by 2030. I'm going to let Ms. Roman talk about some of our strategies.
Here on this slide, you'll see some of the strategies that our schools have used to achieve our goals, but I wanted to share 3 specific concrete examples from some of our schools. In the justice pyramid, the principals and their attendance teams and counselors collaborate together to support school attendance. So if there's a family who has a student in elementary school and high school, instead of going to 2 attendance meetings, they go to 1, and the school teams collaborate together to make that more convenient and more supportive for the family. That's one example, a concrete example of how schools are working to support regular school attendance. On-time graduation, an example I want to share comes from Falls Church High School. This past year, they had a big campaign. They called it Guardians of Graduation, as a play on the Guardians of the Galaxy. And what they did is they looked at students who were most at risk to not graduate, and they paired them with a trusted adult in the building, any adult who'd really supported that student in their entire high school career from 9th grade to 12th grade, to make sure that there was an adult checking in with them and encouraging them to get to the finish line. As we think about mathematics and language arts performance, I want to share a story from Brookfield Elementary School, which is a school that really prioritized goal setting and also that one-on-one, creating a sense of belonging in their school building. They reinforced growth mindsets. They also, before SOL testing, had one-on-one meeting times with the teacher. And when the principal was walking down the hallway, saw a student, "How are you feeling as we're heading into testing?" The student said, "I feel great because my teacher believes I can do it." So just some stories from the field, from our schools that are really implementing a bunch of different strategies to support our students in the school building.
Thank you, y'all did good. We have room to talk about budget. All right, wonderful. Okay, so can we discuss Fairfax County Public Schools 2025-2026 budget allocation, the school year that just ended, and then the upcoming school year 2026-2027 budget allocation. And we're going to give at least 4 minutes for this. Thank you.
We don't need to. So, yeah, thank you. No, I'll take the budget question because staff pretty much suggested that would be one for me. So I do want to thank our staff because I hope what you're hearing is a deep investment and commitment to the work. So, and I also want to say that I appreciate the turnout from our region offices tonight and the work that the regions are leading. This is one of the most cohesive leadership groups for our regions, and when everyone gets on that same page, we can move mountains. So I'm really proud of our region team. With regard to budget, as you know, we had a budget gap for the 25, I don't know, is there a slide about budget behind me? No, okay. All right, because I don't think we have one. But the 25-26 budget, as you know, there was a gap in the transfer that we had to scramble last spring to close. And recall the drama, I'm talking a year ago, recall the drama around ART, fully funding our advanced academic teachers, our special education department leads. We had class size consolidation. In other words, we had to add 1 FTE to our class size ratio. So budget was really tight last year. And we also have federal funding uncertainties because our federal government has at different times canceled different grants or cut those grants back. In that case, that did affect our central office departments, and our equity and excellence office and department was one of those departments that was impacted. So we did freeze open positions in the central office this year across all departments. And so we did not have the full the full specialist positions, one for each region this past year. But we were able to maintain our funding for our equity leads at each school. And as a superintendent and as a budget team, my priority is always going to be to try to maintain the funds as closest to the classroom as we can. I want to make sure that our staff in the schools have the training, the skills, and the staffing there close to the kids. And sometimes that means we're going to run a little thin at the central office, and that's how it's going to be. I will say that next year's funding is, we just had this conversation for a minute, Dr. Hunter and I, she's like, do you want me to ask you about next year? You probably know as much as I do about next year's budget, because we just heard that the governor, that maybe there's an agreement on budget in Richmond, because we haven't seen a state allocation yet either. I don't know what that looks like, but apparently we're close, so we'll hear more about that soon. But that, so that part of our budget's not complete. But what I will say is that the federal budget did not increase. The uncertainty has not gone away. So one of the things we shared with the MSAOC committee when they provided the report is, I also think we're going to need to think about how are we doing our work, not just in the Equity and Excellence Department, but across all our departments. How are we going to be able to do that differently to get different results? Because we've been doing some things for a few years, honestly, and not gotten the results that I think we'd hoped to get. So some of the things with budget next year, we're providing funding for substitutes for our equity leads, so they can attend more training and be, if we can get 200 schools and all the equity leads rowing in the same direction, I mean, that's a powerful move, right? We're never going to have enough central office people to have that direct line of impact in all 200 schools. We're also going to be providing funding for principal coaching around equipping this support as well. And we're taking some funding, achievement gap closing funding, as well as some Title I funding to provide training this summer for a program called ECRI, which is Early Childhood Research Interventions, which I don't know if some of you are with the pilot elementary schools. It's a first grade program, and we're paying to add second grade as well, but it's having a huge impact on children's ability to read well early. So we really see that as a gap closing strategy. So that's kind of where I'll stop at the moment, and then give it back to our moderators here.
All right, thank you very much, and thank you for that response. At this time, we will open the floor and the mics to anyone who wants to come up and allow. I guess you're up.
So my name is Juliet Adams, and I'm a teacher. I'm a special ed teacher at Blackpool Middle School. So I appreciate the questions that were asked. I'm from the Caribbean. I have to preface what I'm saying. I'm from the Caribbean, and I have very, very high expectations of what education can do and how education can move mountains. And that's the approach I'm coming from. My question to the team, and I'm very pleased and proud of Superintendent Reid's team. How are you getting the grassroots movement into the schools to really understand what's going on? I'm a Glasgow, and I've been advocating from the minute I entered Glasgow that Glasgow needs to be used as a model for diversity, for a standard to assist Fairfax County Public Schools. At one of our staff meetings, there was a survey which we looked at, and we knew it was skewed. And we know in statistics, if you don't have good information in, good information can never come out. And that's a serious problem. Very skewed. It was not correct. It was more inflated. I don't know the samples that was used in terms of generating that information. We need field workers. We need individuals from an executive position who would actually go into schools, who would actually talk to principals, gather data, because what we're getting is a big disconnect. I can go on, but I will not. And I've written extensively to some members of your team, so they know the dimension I'm coming from. I've heard students saying they're going to be dropping out of school. I haven't heard that. The language which is used, there is not that enforcement of discipline. And it's racial, the N-word is almost like whatever at Glasgow. So, to wrap it up, we need, if it's equity leads, but we need ground people, field representatives to go into the school and bring back information to you. Thank you. So in that area, what can be done? And based on how I'm tracking Richmond, they said a 3%. In principle, they have agreed. By tomorrow, they should be given firm information in terms of what the agreement is. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your question. My name is Amelia Mitchell. I represent Region 2, and Glasgow happens to be in Region 2. And so I definitely want to have a conversation with you individually so that I can get a better understanding of some of the things that you're talking about. However, I will say, as a region team, we visit Glasgow quite a bit. It is one of our Project Momentum schools, and we're working really closely with the principal there. This is her second year, actually, her second year there. And we're seeing tremendous progress at Glasgow. So we do know some of the things that are going on there. We are working really closely with that principal to support some of the changes that need to occur. And so I will tell you, as a regional assistant superintendent, I'm very proud of the work that's happening there. And no doubt, there's more work to be done. So let's talk and let's get it done, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Did someone pick up a blue folder from up here or from up at the podium?
You shouldn't have asked that question.
Okay, good evening, Dr. Reid and all the staff members. My name is Russell Brooks. I live in the Franconia area, involved in local politics, and I have a question to ask specifically about the news report about the incident that took place at Thoreau Middle School. As I'm sure you are well aware, a parent reported that her son has been the victim of repeated racial harassment over a 2-year period. And that has had a significant psychological effect on her son. I had the opportunity to actually speak to her and find out some of the details. And unfortunately, I would contend that her son has suffered some trauma as a result of what he has experienced over, again, a 2-year period. And unfortunately, I think it can also be said that the school officials have failed her son. They were aware of these incidents over a considerable period of time and took no effective action to curtail this activity. Now I want to contrast that to another incident that I understand took place at that school, which shows that there's obviously some problems there, where there was an incident of anti-Semitism. But the reaction was quite different. The school officials reported it, responded, took action against those who were responsible. I think counseling was available, and they spoke to, I think, the general student body. I think that's correct. But the main thing is there was a quite obvious difference in how they handled that situation. Now, as you probably know, this incident was reported to NBC, and they did a television report, and also the parent wrote a piece for the Fairfax County Times. Only after those two incidents, after it was publicized in the media, was action taken. All of a sudden, the school resource officer contacted the parent. Okay? All of a sudden, there was interest in trying to take some action after it was publicized. I'm going to repeat again. This occurred over a 2-year period. This child had to deal with this in the main by himself and with his mother. Okay? She reports that, and hopefully I'm not revealing too much, she thought her son was considering suicide. She thought her son was cutting himself. That's the sort of trauma that he was dealing with. Okay? So it's great that you've outlined at a 20,000-foot level the progress that the school system has made. Okay? The statistics that you presented, that's good, and I'm sure you're aware that more progress can be made, and your team can be commended for that. But I'm also saying you need to deal with things at a ground level. There has to be some accountability for failure, and I don't think that has been done. So I would be very interested in how, on that ground level, in that particular school, you're going to address the situation.
Before Dr. Reid answers that, thank you for that question, because that was a question that I had. Because in my almost 3 years of being the president at the Fairfax NAACP, we have gotten numerous complaints about Black students being harassed in school, being called every name except the one that their parents gave them, being bullied, and no administrator has taken them serious. And again, as Mr. Brooks said, at a high level, you all have addressed it. But at the bottom where reality sits, nothing is being done. The administrators aren't doing anything. The teachers are not direct reporting these incidents, and that is the reason why the parents come to the NAACP, because you all have seemingly failed them. So I share Mr. Brooks' concerns, because I'm seeing these complaints come in about the treatment of Black students in Fairfax County Public Schools. So again, thank you, Mr. Brooks, for bringing that to light about this one incident that made the news versus the countless incidents and complaints that we get at our level. I share with you all, if I may, Dr. Reid, I emailed Dr. Reid, and I expressed to her, we cannot solve these issues one issue at a time. There needs to be a broad stroke, because our students cannot continue to come to school and be fearful. This is not Jim Crow South, this is 2026. So there needs to be a comprehensive plan to, number one, deal with the administrators who are watching these things happen and turning the other cheek. Deal with the region superintendents who find out about it and then provide top cover to those administrators. The executive principals who find out about it and then provide top cover for the school principals, school system principals, team leads, so on and so forth. This is the reality of what our children are facing in 2026. So I would be interested in knowing what your plan is to not just address these issues, but how do you plan on addressing these administrators who turn a blind eye when Black children are being mistreated and bullied and have to face these traumas and that affect them daily. Thank you.
So, thank you, Mr. Brooks, and Ms. Zimmerman, thank you. I want to be really clear that hate speech, racism, hate, that has no place in Fairfax County Public Schools. So I want to start there. I did receive an email from the parent that you're referring to, I think prior to it being publicized, and we have scheduled a meeting to visit so I can learn more about what happened directly from the parent. And so I believe that's coming up yet, but I will be meeting with the parent in that case. So I don't want to comment on the specific discipline incidents. I haven't met with the parent yet. But I do want to be clear that we want to make sure that we are addressing discipline issues in an appropriate manner. There's just no space to not do that. Once I learn more about the circumstance, I have one email, I haven't had the conversation, then I'll meet with the region and the principal as well. I think that, and there is accountability for that, we have to make sure that every child, each and every child, feels like they can come to school, show up as who they are, be seen, respected, absolutely. I think that I would expect that there is, and I'm going to tell you that clearly I'm hearing evidence to the contrary, right? So where we are working hard at upholding a standard and a clear standard, it's clear we can continue to work harder. We don't have, we can do better. So, and that's my responsibility at the end of the day. The staff in this room work for me, right? So I need to be clear about the need for that level of accountability. Because I think there are also, so I'm going to pause there. So once I have an opportunity to meet with the parent, I will meet with the region and the principal, and we'll make sure that the issue is addressed appropriately. Okay. Secondly, when you think about that broader plan, I think, Nikki, that you were talking about, one of the things we're actually doing as part of what Tara talked about with the Discipline Consortium, it's actually working very intentionally with staff in schools that have data that have essentially nominated themselves, if that makes sense. Like where we're seeing issues, we are sending more resources to schools that require more resources. We're also doing continued training with our principals this year. That was one of the things I talked about with budget allocation. And also making sure that our equity leads in each school are able to understand better. I think it goes back to the Glasgow teacher, and I apologize, I didn't catch your, Juliet Adams, Miss Adams, your comment about getting out and finding out what's going on. And Dr. Mitchell's response, I think our equity leads have a key role because there's one in every school, right? So the whole focus for that position, I think also could be more preventive. We don't want to have to keep reacting every time there's an issue. We want to make sure we've got the culture and climate characteristics that should not have that issue continue to reappear. And frankly, for a variety of reasons, it's become even more challenging in the last, when was that? Last year and a half, 2 years, with the national rhetoric being a lot more challenging for us to navigate as a school division. And it's empowered, I think, in some spaces, in some cases, children and adults to say and do things that are not appropriate for, I think, a civil democracy. And we're struggling with that too. Just the comments recently about our former First Lady are just unbelievable. And the fact that there's no pushback about that in any intentional way says, it speaks volumes. I think we are of the same generation and we just wouldn't hear that type of, it's just so inappropriate. And so I think we're battling that as well right now. So so I'll leave that there for the moment.
not moving on yet. I actually, is there any regional superintendents or anyone that works in diversity, equity, and inclusion that would like to also add on and discuss this topic?
So I'm Dr. Jamil Choice. I'm the regional superintendent for the school that you mentioned. And I'll just start by saying, as a black man living in America, when the allegations were lifted to me, they impacted me not just professionally, but personally, right? We get into this work because we want to make sure that we create school experiences and environments where students feel safe, seen, heard, and valued so they can perform at their optimal potential. And when they leave us, they can go be great citizens of the world. Prior to the email coming forth, I had no idea that the gravity of this was happening at the school, and we responded immediately by setting up a meeting with the parent, which is scheduled for next week. My team and I reached out to the principal, held accountability conversations with the principal, tried to see where the gaps were, what was the timeline, how did they respond, where could we have leveled up in our responses, and immediately reached out to the parent to schedule a meeting to see how can we provide that immediate assistance. Just as Dr. Reid mentioned, this is an ongoing matter that's continuously to be under review. We have not met with the parent from the administration side. I know the school has. But I will tell you, if there has been any gap in how this was handled, accountability will be held on all fronts. Now, will you know specifically exactly what that accountability entails? No, because that's a personnel matter. And so at this point, I just want us to work together in partnership to ensure that we identify how we can have a successful path forward, not just with that young man, but all students within that school so that it's an inclusive environment. And we can provide the principal, the staff, and students the necessary supports and coaching that they need so this doesn't happen again, so that we're not here again. The last thing that I'll say is I will tell you that in conversation with the principal and looking over the facts of the investigation and reading the parents' email, I think there's an area of opportunity from the division standpoint to be a little bit more proactive. And through the work that Ms. Ewan and Dr. King and her team are doing, but are we lifting up the concerns and trying to create areas of opportunity to get better? Absolutely. So.
Hi, I'm Ashley Williams. I am that parent that you will be meeting with on Monday. So I'm going to try not to get emotional, but I just have a couple of comments. I think, the emails that we received from the principal at the Romeo School and hearing some of that same language that you are using, Dr. Reid, about racism not having a place. And, I think that's just not true. It's here. And more specifically, what I'm bothered by is that there is you have to name very specifically anti-Black racism. Because that is different, right? That type of, you can't collapse all of that together, because what my son has experienced, he has been experiencing not just from white students. Actually, some of the more egregious behavior, though it has also come from white students, has actually come from other minority students, right? And so part of my issue and why I raised it is because I am actually really tired of hearing these same types of platitudes over and over again about racism and hate speech. And it's not just hate speech. My son has had water poured on his hair. My son has been handed bananas and called a monkey. My son has had the N-word said out loud repeatedly in front of staff, and in a few instances, one most recently, the staff did nothing because they claimed they couldn't identify who the student was in the group, okay? So it's not working. Whatever you guys have been doing, it's not working. I didn't just think myself, I was trying to kill myself. He was. And the school knew that because I told them. They didn't do enough. So, Dr. Choice, when I'm hearing you say there's some growth and learning opportunities, there were gaps. She's doing better now because we managed to get him therapy, but at some point last year, I thought I was going to have to remove my child from school and hospitalize him. And they knew that, and they knew why. I have had these conversations with them. So it's not working. On top of that, I've heard, the second question was about, how are we addressing minority students? And the conversation or what was brought up was school culture, we're addressing the school culture. And what I will also show you on Monday is that there are tools that already, my son's numbers for 2 years have been real low. He doesn't feel like he belongs. So I'm curious, how are we using these tools, these data points, right? I hear data. I was a teacher for 10 years, right, in Fairfax County. So I know the power of data. I also know that a lot of times these SEL screeners in particular, because I had to administer them as well when I was at Marshall, they get taken, maybe they get looked at, and then they move on. This is directly related to culture. So how are these SEL screeners, as just one analytical tool, how are they being used to identify these students who are telling you, even though it's another test that they don't want to take, they're taking a test and they're telling you, I don't feel like I belong here. What are we doing with that? How are the administrators and the staff at these schools using that and actually addressing that? Because again, I love the 20,000, right? The 20,000 mile view, right? This is why I'm here tonight. And my son and my daughter were back there, but she was acting up, so I said, okay. But I could have lost him. And just so you all know, I've already lost a child the year before that happened. Well, his brother was stillborn. So just imagine that, to have to sleep on your child's floor and hide knives and scissors and all of that, and be terrified that I'm going to miss him stepping over me quietly to go and hurt himself. That's what we dealt with for 2 years. So something's not working.
First of all, Ms. Williams, I appreciate you reaching out with a note. And I really am sorry for the experience your son's had. And clearly that you've had as well. And I look forward to meeting you and learning more on Monday. With regard to the question about the SEL screener, I would have to defer to Dr. Presidio. I'm not I want to make sure I'm accurate in responding to you about how those data points are used. So Dr. Presidio, I know that's something your department oversees.
Well, first of all, thank you for being here and for sharing your story. I know that takes a lot of courage, and I can't imagine being in your situation. So again, I really apologize for that situation. I'm happy to do anything on my end that I can help remediate it. But in terms of your question, I can follow up with you in more detail later. But at a general level, we look for trends across the division. So as a senior leadership team, we look at the trends that we're seeing across the division to inform the actions that we need to take in terms of additional training and monitoring and supports in schools. Principals and their leadership teams look at the trend data kind of in the same way in their schools, inform the actions that they need to take in their school improvement plans. Schools write annual goals around this work in their school plans. The counselors, social workers, and psychologists screen the results for individual outliers where we really see maybe a student's trying to send a message to us. Doesn't mean that we always get it right or get it perfect. Obviously, we're missing kids in that process and need to get better. But we do take action when we see those individual results like that. The reports do go home to parents because we want parents to see it, because maybe we miss it or maybe we interpret it differently than a parent does. So then that's an opportunity for us to collaborate together. But obviously in this situation, we should have done a lot better than that. I appreciate you being here and sharing your story.
Hi, I'm going to stand up just because otherwise I'll have a swivel head trying to look at everybody. My name's Heather Murphy-Capps. I've been lucky enough to represent Robin Lady and before her, the Drainsville School Board representative for MSAOC. I'm also a parent leader at Langley High School, proud Saxon. Ashley, I'm going to echo what others have said. That took a lot of guts, and I appreciate you bringing that note to our meeting and to let us all know what's going on with you. My question goes back to the recruitment question. The news of how well we have done recruiting is great, and I want to give us an up on that. We deserve that. That's great. And I want to know what we're doing about retaining the students. I'm sorry, not the students, the teachers. Because, as you noted, our students are looking at who's teaching them. And when they don't see them, they're failing. They're failing to feel included. They're failing to feel like they matter. And the environment that gets created by a non-inclusive, non-diverse school is one that ultimately foments what's happening at Thoreau, at Glasgow, at Langley. So I was lucky enough to participate in a recommendation to the school board, not last year, but 2 years ago, on recruitment and retention. And what we found was that the data doesn't tell the whole story about what's going on, about why teachers leave. Some of what we know is that they leave because they have to, their spouses leave, whatever. Some of it is because they aren't comfortable, they are feeling pushed out or not a good fit or not allowed to stay and be who they are. Part of that is because of the school environment, and part of that is because of what's going on with the kids. The kids are saying things they shouldn't be saying, and to your point, Dr. Reid, 2 years ago, things changed drastically. So I want to see us keep the diversity we're recruiting. We can't make it work unless we hang on to that diversity through a student's 4 years. Or for those of us who've got multiple kids in the schools. My daughter was in junior high before she had a teacher who wasn't white. My son was in high school before he had a principal who wasn't white.
Can we keep the response to 1 minute? Thank you. Anyone want to respond to the question about how we're retaining minority teachers? Thank you.
I really appreciate the question, and I agree, retention is the best strategy, right? Every teacher you retain, every employee you retain, number one, as an employee, you don't have to recruit. but also number two is an employee who's getting the benefit of additional experience in our system, additional experience at our schools, with our students, who's understanding the culture, who's understanding how to move the needle, and it really matters. The first thing I will say is, last year was the first year we started looking at our resignation and retirement data by race and ethnicity. And over time, year over year, it's actually pretty flat across the different subgroups. Having said that, part of the strategy is making sure that FCPS is a world-class workforce. Credible, region-leading compensation, world-class benefits, all of those different things. But retention goes so far beyond that. It's about making sure that people, number one, are connected to the mission, are connected to the school, want to be there, want to continue, feel like they have opportunities to not only do well in the system, but also to potentially advance in the system. In other words, to achieve their goals. So part of that is, you mentioned when somebody is feeling like they need a new experience, having the opportunity to go and to see that new experience. Part of what we do is make sure that teachers and other school-based staff members have an opportunity each year to participate in an open transfer period to give them that annual experience. Outside of that, for our employees who want to grow and develop, we have a number of different programs for people who are interested in being administrators, who are interested in learning, who are interested in engaging in professional development, all of those different things. But I agree with you, it's work. It's about making sure that people feel like they're moving the needle in ways that they want to at a school, that they're making a difference, that they're connected to the mission, that they want to continue doing the work. The base is making sure that they have everything they need, right? So compensation, benefits, professional development, connected to the mission, all of that. But then the other piece of that is the culture piece, making sure that we have incredible rock star principals and leaders at our school, that they have the support they need, and that they're creating culture and conditions at their schools so that every teacher and every employee wants to stay there and wants to continue moving on to the next year and the next year. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. We have a few other questions. I see that we only have time for maybe two or three. And someone's about to give a question. But before that happens, can we try our best to be direct with the question? Because it's almost 8 p.m. right now. So if you have a question, please try to be direct with the question. Thank you.
I'm going to say that I will say that I'm going to give my staff the option to leave because they've had a long week, but I will stay until 8:15.
Thank you, Dr. Reid.
I'll stay for the same reasons. I'm James Barber, Jr., and a father of 2 children that attend FCPS schools. The question that I had first had to deal with the shrewd purchase of the Skyview High School, and wanted to commend you and your team for the shrewd purchase and a way to cut the idea of having to build from scratch. With that being said, I wanted to know about the controls. Are there going to be controls put in place in order to make sure that the access to the specializations for Skyview as well as other schools will be open to historically underrepresented groups, specifically those within aerospace and AI, things of that nature, that the opportunities will be made available for my children in a proportional way?
That's a great question, Mr. Barber. And first of all, I'm very disappointed that the mascot was chosen and it wasn't the Lambs. That was what I was kind of rooting for, and it got no traction. Thought we could lead the nation in that kind of sort of mascot. But to your question, I think right now it's opt-in. So for the current 9th and 10th graders, really from any of the 5 pyramids in the western boundary area. And what we're trying to do is take those unique courses, to your point, the aerospace and the AI, and maybe create some type of academy section so that kids, even that can come from a base school, and at least attend that and go back to their base school. Having said that, some of the aerospace work where they're actually going to build a plane over 4 years, you really don't need to be in the program, right? So I think we're still looking at that. I will say that the school board voted to make it a traditional comprehensive high school with a unique learning pathway. So that really means it's gonna have a boundary when we're all said and done, right? And be just like Westfield or Chantilly or Herndon. And because of that specialized program, if it's not fully at capacity, I think students will be able to apply to transfer there as well. What you're asking is, are we gonna hold spots for traditionally underrepresented students to have access? That hasn't come up yet in terms of the lottery, because right now we're accepting anyone that's opting in. But I think it's a good point. And I know Mr. Smith has been the architect of the opening, so I think that's something we can take a look at, as there's a greater interest in the programming. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this question is for you, Dr. Reid. First, I want to introduce myself. My name is Alpha Woolen. I am one of the regional vice chairs for the Fairfax County Democratic Committee. I'm also one of the hosts for Inside Scoop Television, and I'm also the chief operating officer for Rooted Consulting Group. We focus on political consulting. That's what I do on one side. The other side is that I work with aeronautical information management. And it's like, what does that mean? That makes sure that aviation components have good data to make good decisions. But as far as you, how that concerns you is when you step on the plane, you want to make sure that it doesn't crash. You want to make sure you make it to your destination. I want to bring it full circle by saying I think it's great to have parameters, and I think it's great to have rules, and I think it's great to analyze data, but the way you're going to establish whether or not that data is good is when a student walks through the door, are they safe? And so what I've heard from Ashley's situation, I actually reached out to her when I saw the situation on NBC, is that was a failure. There's been a crash. And if the amount of failures that this family has experienced was equal in aviation, no one would fly. The first time I was called a spook was in middle school. The first time I was called a nigger to my face was in high school. The first time I was called a slave to my face and the administrator did nothing was in high school. Racism is it is a health crisis. Now, I'm grateful that I had an opportunity to go to an HBCU to help me reestablish and fortify my identity, but it should start sooner than that. So my question, I guess, it's been answered, but I just want to draw a picture that I'm the picture of someone who's experienced racism firsthand. It is a public health crisis, and I am fully making myself available to help to stand with you, Ashley.
We have one last question, but before we do that, in support of Ms. Williams, I would have to echo your sentiments, because I have a son with autism, and he attended Hayfield Secondary School, where in the 5 years he was there, he faced discrimination, racism. He was not included, as you pointed out so eloquently, sir. He was treated very poorly, and I took it to the principal, assistant principal, executive principal, region superintendent, who coincidentally was married to the principal, but she used a separate name. So you see how far my complaints went. You all are broken, and I don't know if it's beyond repair or not. But you have a broken system, Dr. Reid, and you gotta do something about it. The Black community already has issues we have to deal with. Sending our children to school for quality education should not be an issue. It is a right. Sending our children to school to not be called names is a right. So I appreciate the PowerPoint slides and your view from your tone at the top, as we say. But I live in a land of reality. Ms. Williams lives in a land of reality, and a lot of others live in a land of reality where we're bringing our children to these schools and they're being harassed, they're being called names, they don't want to get up. I can tell you right now, my son with autism, he said this to me. He said, I want FCPS to go out of business, and I want Dr. Reid to go somewhere else. He said that because every morning he hated to get up and go to school at Hayfield Secondary School. So I take this conversation personally, And I'm offended by some of the responses that I'm getting from the administrators. Because again, I live in the land of reality. And I was one of those parents who trusted the process and trusted the system and said, okay, if I report it to this person, they'll do something. They did nothing. Okay, if I take it to this one, they're gonna do this. If I take it to this, so on and so on and so on. And then 5 years later, I had to deal with more things. Teachers not direct reporting incidents, and yet they still have a job. Principals not doing what they're supposed to do because they're married to the region superintendent. So I'm gonna leave you, that's my thoughts. I'm not saying FCPS to me, it's a terrific school system. I was born and raised in Miami-Dade. It's better than what I received. That still doesn't mean that you all have a broken system. Last question.
Can I, before?
Second to last question.
I became a teacher because of my son with autism. So realistically, he is now an adult. This is a system, I hear that we think it's broken, but it's a system that has been inherited by you, Dr. Reid, and continuously passed down for many, many years. My son is almost 30 years old now. He still lives with the trauma of what happened to him at FCPS. But we have to make sure that we understand that this, while it's this administration here that we are able to talk to, he was able to tell a principal recently, I wish I had you as a principal, because he saw how that principal was speaking to a kid with autism. He didn't have that. So this is a system that has been passed down over and over again. We live in Fairfax County. Everybody here knows that there's racism in the school system. And to be totally honest, I'm a special ed teacher. There's racism in the school system. There's racism in your unions. There's racism in all of it. My question now becomes, what are we going to do as a community to help fix it? There's a lot that's wrong, but there's a lot that's right. And no, it's not just because I work for FCPS. We all need a job. But it's because I'm telling the truth. I became a teacher because of what my child went through. I held on to that for a very long time. I still hold on to it because nobody wants their child hurt. I get it. And when he cries, or he's upset, or when he was crying and he was upset, of course I was upset. They were ready for him to graduate from Woodson, not because of him, but because of me. So let's just make sure that we know that as a community, we have to do something. We have to hold our school board accountable as well. It's all of us together.
Next question.
Hi, Natalie Cole. No, I can't sing. So I am from, someone said it earlier, I'm from Mississippi, right? I am from, someone said the Jim Crow South, so I always remind people of Jim Crow America. I usually get offended when people always look at us, we perfected racism, but we didn't create it, right? But what I do want to say is, as I sit here and I listen to all of you, and I'm new, so please take this, my question or my statement with grace and ignorance on my part, because I'm new and I'm trying to learn, right? Me and the staff at Fairfax Education Association, all moved to Northern Virginia, and we all say the same thing. Where's community? There's no community up here. We don't talk to each other. The first thing we had to do in our union is teach our members how to talk to each other. I mean, they sit in the school building and literally speak to each other. So I guess my question is, as I sit here with the NAACP and I sit here with the FCPS, is if we're saying that this is broken and this is not working, and we keep having the same conversation over and over again, when do we build a community plan to say it's not working and it should look like this? And then we help implement these things together, because the school can't do it by itself, right? So I know we're trying to flip our members from the service model. When I say it is, I have a problem, fix it for me, and I go, no, I will stand there with you, I'll put my hand on my back, I'll hold your hand as you do this. It's a you in union, right? So when we talk about community and what we want to see and how we want our children to see themselves, the question is though, all of us see ourselves differently. So what's the common thread and how do we build that out? So I'm asking, as an end of ACP and as FCPS, what's the strategic plan though? Because we can keep pointing at everyone, but if we don't tell them this is what we feel the strategic plan should be and this is what we feel like we want this school to look like, how do we help you get that? So does that mean that we gotta go lobby to the school board and county commissioners for more money, right? And as we have a federal government that cut money, so you don't have the socio and emotional supports in schools, how do we help you get that then? Does that mean that we have counselors that volunteer to come to schools to do this? Because as our educators teach every day, they don't have time to do everything. So I guess my question or my statement is, as the NAACP, what's the vision we're setting to give to them to say, this is what we expect?
Yeah, one last question, then we'll have closing comments from our moderators, and we will end with Superintendent.
Hi, my name is Reid. I'm a mom of 3 kids here in FCPS. I have a lot of questions that I wrote down. I'm going to limit it to one, but I am going to echo that racism is definitely in our schools. It is reported all the time. You talked about having a reporting tool. I think in the last in-person meeting, you guys have mentioned that there's a way for students to report and parents to report. Now you're telling me that there's something on a website. I spend a lot of time, due to the nature of my job, in front offices of FCPS schools. 2 weeks ago, I finally saw one poster that showed parents a way to report discrimination, not on a website, but in an office, and that is one. I don't see it attached with a QR code. How are we making that accessible?
Brittany said,
My actual question,
students and
there's
adults,
the
what
Minority
she
School
means
Achievement
when they
Oversight
ask
Committee that gave a report to you. And in
retention
there,
also
under
increasing
recommendation 5
for
and 6,
AA teachers.
it
What
talks
does
about the
attrition
equity,
look like?
position,
He
and feedback
hasn't
not
asked
being
that question.
reinstated. When you're not centering this work, despite the claims and aims of your strategic plan, how do you expect this work to be done? This work to be so accessible?
Yeah, I responded to that in my opening remarks. I talked about the fact that our budgets have been cut. We have a transfer that's been cut, and we're going to have in the upcoming year also a budget shortfall, and the federal grants have been cut. So we're looking at having to make choices about how do we address the need for services, which is why we continue the equity leads at individual schools, training for the equity leads, for principals, because we're not going to be able to have a full complement of central office staff assigned to every region. It's just, there's not going to be the budget capacity for that. So we're going to have to do, and I think we've also established that when we've had that, it still has not been, we've not eradicated racism as a result of the central office positions, right? So we're going to have to find different ways of doing this work to get different results. So when we meet again next year, our data actually looks better and we don't hear continuing stories of discrimination and racism that really need to be done here in our schools.
I'll just respond to that with, I think it's been obvious tonight that there is racism that is being reported. And when that happens, if it happens from a parent, if it happens from a kid, you'll do a risk assessment, you'll do these things. But I think the overwhelming feeling is that it doesn't really go anywhere. And I look forward to seeing what you're actually putting into place to make sure that when we report things, like we tell our kids, please report what happened, that some adult in the room actually does something about it.
I would agree with you, and I don't know if it was Dr. Choice or Dr. Mitchell, whoever said, but this is not one department's responsibility or one office's responsibility. This is every single staff member in this room's responsibility, and frankly, all of our responsibility as a community, right? At the end of the day, it's my responsibility because I have to report to the board. And so, tonight has been a difficult night. There's no question. I'm going to kick it back to you, Nikki, but I appreciate the question, and Thank you.
So, our moderators, want to thank you for taking the time out of you all's busy schedule to moderate this important conversation, very meaningful conversation. I hope we all walk away learning something and open up dialogue. Natalie was absolutely correct. We need to work together. And the Fairfax County NAACP is absolutely ready to sit at the table with you, Dr. Reid. Because as I expressed to you before, we can't do onesies and twosies when it comes to these complaints. There does need to be a comprehensive look and on the ground level, because our students do need the same protections as everyone else. So I would kick it to our two co-moderators, and then Dr. Reid, you get closing statements. Uh-oh.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I wanted to share this too, because the NAACP has been around since 1909. And one of the core goals for the NAACP in 1909 was to eliminate racial discrimination. How many years have passed? You know, we still never go away totally. However, if there are things that we can do as the education committee, let us know. I appreciate Tara sharing that she's going to share a module and we're going to be able to review it. We're open for that. So utilize us. And that's what I wanted to share. We want to be a part of fixing the issue, not making it a more explosive issue. We've got issues. We've got issues. Okay?
I have one last question. It came from the live stream.
The mic.
How do you address racism in adults in Fairfax County Public Schools when the adults themselves use passive-aggressive statements towards other adults and children? So the issue is, how do you deal with the adults who are taking part in this? And that's the very last question.
Well, I will let Mr. Solomon talk about that from an HR standpoint, but if I understand the question, are we talking about how do we address adults who are behaving in a racist manner?
No.
Is that what the question is? No? Sorry, Ms. Houston?
So they're asking, they wanted clarity on how we would address racism when adults say and do passive aggressive things and statements toward other adults in the school system or students.
So if an adult in the system, a staff member in the system is behaving in a way that violates our expectations around workplace conduct, they will be disciplined. As a matter of course, yes.
Thank you. So we're gonna get ready to close, and so I'll just say a few brief things to pretty much piggyback on what Dr. Iris mentioned about us being here as part of the NAACP Fairfax County Education Committee. I am here to be a change agent, and as an educator myself, one of the things that I know is important is parent involvement. Parent involvement. As a community, we need parents. We need more parents to show up for things. We need more parents. And so those parents that are here, can I get a show of hands of all parents that have a student currently in Fairfax County Public Schools? Oh, future. Okay, currently our future, okay. All right, so thank you to all those parents that showed up, and we really do need more parents to show up. And as I just mentioned, as an educator myself, that's one important thing, because the district and administration cannot do it all. And we don't know what's going on at the schools sometimes unless the parents tell us. And so that's what I will close with, and thank you for the parents that showed up. Thank you for the community. Some of us that do not have our own kids or children in Fairfax County, thank you for still being here as part of the community and helping to be a change agent. Thank you.
Now, I'll follow up with that as well, and to the parent who had the issue, once again, heartbreaking story. We apologize for that, and we're with you on that. But as we walk away today, and we've heard it come out, this is an opportunity to build relationships. And we tell our kids this all the time: build a relationship, work on this, work on that. But in these times that we have, in these days, that is not something that we do as adults. I agree, the schools can't raise your child.
That's right.
We are here to support your child. And if your kid is in high school, we've got your kid for 4 years. 4 years. And we should be supporting you and vice versa in those 4 years to build a relationship. So when Nikki speaks on you have to have a ground level view, you are correct. But Dr. Reid, when you have to have an upper level view to look down to see what's going on, to make changes, you are correct. But neither one can make those changes without the relationship of communication. And once we build that relationship of working with each other, you have a view from both perspectives, which now starts the change agent. So until we can get on the same page and have open dialogue like this and move forward and actually and honestly address some of the concerns that are taking place, we're going to stay where we are. We've got to be open to the feedback from both sides. As a parent, you don't know the politics behind an educational perspective. There's only so many things that can be done from this side of the table. But until you communicate and have that conversation, it's not going to happen. So if we walk away today and we've got one word that we walk away with, the relationships. And I'll leave it with that.
So, Ms. Zimmerman, Dr. Hunter, thank you for working with Ms. Hall to get this put together. Mr. McMillan and Dr. Walker, thank you for being here this evening, and thank all of you for coming this evening. Ms. Williams, I look forward to our meeting on Monday. And you must have an amazing young son who's gone off to take care of that little one. Oh, there he is, okay. Very responsible, you've got to be very proud of him. So, this has been a difficult night, and I know that our staff are going to have a conversation. We need to debrief what we heard, because we obviously need to do better. That's my commitment, that we will do better. I do appreciate Mr. McMillan's conversation around relationships, so I feel like we got to be connected at this point. So I know, Tara, when we talked about the modules and some of the sort of that restorative justice and retraining work, we've got to work more closely with the NAACP on that. And I'm really pleased that, Dr. Hunter, that you're excited about that. So I think tonight, albeit difficult, I mean, unless it, we got to hear to move forward. So I appreciate the honesty in the room.
Thank you all for coming out. Have a great night. Enjoy the weekend.